Compacted clay is, honestly, one of the most frustrating challenges any gardener faces. It's heavy, it holds water in the wrong way, and, well, it bakes into brick when dry. Many people attack it with spades, tillers, or back-breaking digging, only to find the soil hardens again after a season. The Amish, however, approach clay differently. They don't see it as something to fight, but as a material that can be transformed. Their method doesn't rely on endless digging. It relies on layering, patience, and the natural power of organic matter to create humus. Let's walk through how this works and why it creates lasting change in clay soil. Clay isn't your enemy, but it does need balance. Clay soil has a strength that's often overlooked. Because it has tiny particles, it holds nutrients better than sandy soil ever could. The problem is structure. When those particles pack tightly, there's no room for air or water to move. When roots suffocate and microbial life disappears, well, that's when trouble starts. Digging only rearranges the compaction temporarily, you know. The Amish method, on the other hand, treats clay with organic matter, which acts as a wedge, prying apart the particles and creating permanent pore spaces. Once humus develops, clay becomes a rich, stable soil capable of supporting crops year after year. It's really quite remarkable, isn't it? The foundation of the Amish approach is surface layering. Instead of tilling amendments deep into the ground, the Amish build soil from the top down. It's a simple idea, but honestly it makes all the difference. So they start with a good heavy layer of coarse organic material right on the surface. This could be sticks, twigs, shredded bark, or even corn stalks, you know. The main purpose here is to create little gaps where air and water can begin to penetrate. On top of that, they add finer materials such as leaves, straw or hay, followed by some nutrient-rich compost or well-rotted manure. The layering, well, it actually mimics how a forest floor works, where organic debris slowly breaks down and feeds the soil beneath. To make this all practical, you can follow a ratio that works quite well in clay beds. Lay down 4 to 6 inches of coarse material, then cover it with about 3 inches of leaves or straw, and finally cap it with 2 inches of compost or aged manure. Over time, worms and microbes will carry this material down into the clay, opening channels and adding humus bit by bit. When organic matter breaks down completely, it doesn't just disappear. It transforms into humus, which is, well, a stable form of carbon that actually resists further decomposition. Humus is spongy, dark and, capable of holding both moisture and nutrients. In clay soils, humus binds with the fine particles and stops them from sticking so tightly. This is actually why Amish farmers rarely worry about compaction where they've applied their layering method year after year. Each season, the soil becomes more crumbly, less sticky and, well, more alive. For example, after 2 years of layering 6 inches of mixed materials each fall, a compacted clay patch that once shed water like concrete will begin absorbing rainfall. Dig down and you'll find a layer of dark, friable soil replacing the brick-like surface. That is humus in action. Another part of the Amish method is planting cover crops directly into the layered materials. Deep-rooted plants like daikon radish, crimson clover or rye push through the clay and leave behind organic tunnels when they die back. These roots not only loosen soil but also add nitrogen and carbon. When combined with the surface layering, cover crops double the speed of transformation. Planting in autumn and letting the cover die into the mulch, well, it creates the perfect cycle. In practical terms, you can simply scatter clover seed into your layered bed in early autumn. By springtime, the clover's roots will have worked their way into the clay while the mulch above, it begins to decay. The combined effect is softer soil, ready for vegetables, and all that without a shovel in sight. Clay soil swings between extremes, soggy when it's wet and rock-hard when it's dry. The Amish, well, they solve this by letting organic matter act as a buffer. Mulch prevents surface baking and keeps rainfall from compacting the soil further. And as these materials decompose, they create little microchannels that regulate drainage. A layered bed, well, it holds water like a sponge rather than a bucket. For gardeners, this means you'll see fewer drowned roots in spring and, honestly, fewer wilted plants in summer. To test if your layering has worked, just dig a small hole in midsummer. If water trickles in rather than pooling, you've improved infiltration. And if the soil holds together but crumbles when pressed, humus is taking over. Clay doesn't change overnight, my friends, but this method makes it permanent. The Amish method is not a quick fix. No, it's a steady, natural process that rewards patience. You see, one season of layering may not be enough to completely transform a stubborn patch of clay, but give it 2 or 3 seasons, and it will. The payoff, well, it's permanent. Once humus integrates into clay, it doesn't wash away, and the soil doesn't revert to its compacted state, as long as you keep feeding it with organic matter. If you compare this to mechanical tilling, the difference is obvious. Tilling gives you short-term looseness, but, it damages soil life. Layering and humus building take longer, but they create a living soil that sustains itself. If you've been breaking your back digging in clay, it's time to stop fighting and start cooperating with the soil. The Amish method of surface layering, cover cropping and humus building works because it doesn't rely on force. It relies on biology. Clay is not a curse when managed this way. It becomes a foundation for fertile, resilient beds that can feed your garden for decades. Don't give up on clay. Feed it, layer it, and let nature do the heavy lifting. Over time, you'll trade your shovel for a handful of dark, crumbly humus that grows anything you plant. For more time-tested soil revival methods and lazy tricks that actually work, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this guide with other gardeners who are tired of fighting clay the hard way.